talking Reds, Sports Centers. Got me on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. Open the chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Broadcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're roll better. We're who cares? Trendsetters.
Yo, what's poppin', y'all? It's your boy, it's Guard E3, and welcome to the N1 Podcast, as I'd like to call this Prediction Week, because this is the week where we'll get all of our hot takes out of the way. Of course, hot takes, we'll talk about standings, we'll talk about all NBA teams, we'll just have a little fun. We'll predict how we think the season is going to go. And hopefully, I think Mo should hopefully be joining soon. But in the meantime, I will be right here. And we're going to start off like we always do. So for everybody tuning in, thank you. We always start these off, the same way as we always do. The underrated player of the week. We think that there are just too many, players in general that just get overlooked and just lost in time. And I think I'm going to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies a little bit because I feel like everybody's talking about, Zach Edey. We're talking about Ja Morant, and, rightfully so. I think those guys are very talented. Zach Edey's looked like an absolute menace in the post, and that same post up at Purdue, it looks like it's going to follow him very well to the NBA. He was bullying Miles Turner, Jackson, you name it. Those Pacer centers did not have a chance against him. But, we're talking Bane. I've heard Jaren Jackson. Not a lot of people are talking about Marcus Smart, and I think Marcus Smart is going to be absolutely huge for the Memphis Grizzlies this year. This is a guy who's just overall, he's still a very talented defender. Unfortunately, he dealt with injuries last year. And when we're talking Grizzlies discourse, I think he might be getting a little lost. This is a guy whose defense is so good that he was the Defensive Player of the Year just a couple of years ago. His playmaking for that offense is going to be great. Paired with, Desmond Bane made great strides as a secondary playmaker. But overall, I'm starting to think that people might be forgetting just how good that, Marcus Smart is going to be for that team because he is not getting a lot of talk. I think that Memphis Grizzly team is going to be a lot better than people expect them to be, and I think he's going to have a huge hand in that. So, my underrated player of this week, it's just somebody going into the season this week. It's going to be Marcus Smart, man. I think he's going to be great. Which, before I get too far into anything, though, today, I want to shout something out real quick. You see, I have a friend, his name is Gabe. He made this awesome website, and I actually use a lot of the stuff that he makes on the show. So I just wanted to shout this out real quick. So this is a site he made. It's called NBA Visuals. If you ever are curious on something, like, for example, he has managed, and I don't know how, but this is incredible, but he makes these graphs for different NBA players. Like, I have Al Horford's graph from last year's regular season. You can see how well he shot. There's a little tab up here. You can see how well players shot during the postseason. And this graph goes all the way back, mind you, to 1996 of the 97 season. It is absolutely wild what he's done. There's different things, too, like with or without you. You can see how well, certain players fare on the court and how well their teams do. So I just wanted to, show this off real quick. Like, let's see. Let's see how well the Hawks were with Trae Young on the court relative to him off. So actually they were about the same last year. But I just wanted to give a shout out to my boy Gabe in creating this website. I think it's awesome. And if you're a big fan of, just NBA stats, graphs, check it out because there's also cool things like salary cap, you can look up individual stats for players series. Just overall, a lot of cool stuff that he's working on. And right now, this is just in beta testing. So I can't wait to see what the end result looks like. But I just wanted to, give my boy Gabe there a quick shout out. And of course, guys, we're finally here. A week from today, actually less than a week from today, Tuesday of next week, the NBA regular season starts. Next week on the N1 podcast, mind you, we are going to be doing a watch along, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Watch alongs are so back, and I'm so happy for that. But I figure this week, why not get all the bold predictions out of the way first? So I think that's what we'll do. And I'm just overall going to try to predict the standings, all NBA teams, award winners. So why don't we start with a little reminder we'll start with all NBA teams, because I think that will be a great place to start. I already have my top 30 NBA players list that I made actually earlier on the show. Now, granted, I did move things around, and I'm still in the process of moving things around, but right now, my top 30 players in the NBA right now, I got Nikola Jokic at 1, Giannis at 2, Luka at 3, SGA at 4, Embiid at 5, Curry at 6. Now, remember, this is a predictions list, so this isn't how they are going into the season. This is how I think they're going to be at the end of the season. So when you start hearing some names, just remember, I think this is how they're going to finish and just do throughout the entire course of the season. We have at 7, I think that's going to be Wemby. I think he's going to make this massive jump this year. 8, Kevin Durant. 9, Jalen Brunson. 10, Jason Tatum. 11. And this one was pretty controversial when I said it here last time. Tyrese Halliburton. Number 12, LeBron James. 13, Devin Booker. 14, Ja Morant. 15, Anthony Edwards. 16, now I'm going to straight up say this. I'm going to move this down. For now, it was Kawhi Leonard. But I think after the recent injury update there, I'm going to end up moving him down even further. Which is, Kawhi Leonard is so interesting to me. He's just such an enigma. Like, on one hand, when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, we're talking about a guy who was very much so an all-NBA caliber talent when he did play last year. So it's not like the man lost a step. I still think he's a very good basketball player. But I don't know how much I can trust his injury history and the fact that, it was day-to-day when this knee injury first got announced last year to now still being out because of it. I don't necessarily think that I don't know what to make of Kawhi Leonard. I think he's one of the more tough guys to really gauge right now. So, for right now, until further notice, 16. I'm going to switch them right now, actually. 16, I'll put Anthony Davis. 17, Kawhi Leonard. So, on the fly, we're switching them. I'm going to put 80 over Kawhi this year. And I think I might move Kawhi down a few more spots before I, post this list in a couple days, which is unfortunate. I really do like Kawhi. So 16, Anthony Davis, 17, Kawhi Leonard, 18, Donovan Mitchell, 19, De'Aaron Fox, 20, Kyrie Irving, 21, Zion Williamson, 22, another Damian Lillard, 23, Jaylen Brown, 24, Paul George, 15, Bam Adebayo, 26, Tyrese Maxey, 27, Paolo Banchero, 28, Domantas Sabonis, 29, Jamal Murray, 30, Jimmy Butler. I think this is finally the year where we see Jimmy Butler take quite a dip in play. And, he's come in, and I really like what I've seen from him so far. He looks locked in. He didn't come in messing around. He looks like he's taking everything very seriously. He didn't have the, goofy haircuts or anything, which honestly, I'm not going to lie, that was a lot of fun when he did that. I was kind of sad when he came in, all serious and straight-faced. but also that could just mean that he means business this year. So I'm kind of hoping for it. That would be great. I hope that I'm wrong and Jimmy Butler still has another year or two left of elite play, but I truly think right now and going into the season, I think Bam Adebayo is going to be recognized as the best player on the Miami Heat, especially if that three-point shooting is legit. If his three-ball shooting stays absolutely the way like he showed during the Olympics, he's going to be an absolute hard guy to guard. You're telling me Bam Adebayo with a corner three-ball? Listen, that's tough. So, overall, I think I have the right 30 players in there, but I might still shift them around before I release the actual list. So, but the fun thing that I, decided to try and do before the show started was I also try to make a prediction on how the standings are going to shake out. And, this might not be the most popular, prediction list again. I have to piss off some fan bases. I'm sorry. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read you how I think the standings are going to shake out. And you can tell me if you think I'm the dumbest guy alive, or if you agree with me. Who do I got winning Rookie of the Year? Welcome, by the way, Andre. I think it's going to be Reed Sheppard. I think Zach E's going to give a great run. But overall, I think Reed Sheppard, he's going to have the volume. He's going to have the scoring. I think it's going to come down to Sheppard and Edey, and I think Reed Sheppard's going to take it home. One of my bold predictions for this year, actually, is Reed Sheppard winning both Rookie of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year, because I think he's going to come off the bench because they're going to start Jalen Green. Unless he starts, which I could absolutely see happening at some point. So, but yeah, I got Sheppard for that, and like my bold prediction, he also wins Sixth Man of the Year. So, but yes, thank you for tuning in, Andre. I really appreciate it. I'm just a guy that likes talking hoops. So here we go. My prediction for the East standings this year. We got the 1 seed, the New York Knicks. Now, I think there are better teams than the New York Knicks in the East. But I think the one thing that the Knicks have going for them is they have a lot of guys who are just normally very durable. And I think they're just mix of talent and durability that's going to propel them to the 1 seed. I think teams like the Celtics are better. I think Milwaukee, you can make an argument a healthy Milwaukee's better. I think when Paul George comes back, you can make an argument that a healthy, Philly's better. But I think when it comes to mixing talent and durability, I think the Knicks are going to take the 1 seed this year. I got Boston at 2. I think we're going to see a little bit less injury luck from them. We already have Kristaps going to be missing some time. I think they're still the best team in the NBA. But I think there's just going to be more load management. Guys like Drew Holiday and Al Horford are a year older. Kristaps going to be coming off an injury. I think the injury luck's just going to bump them down a spot. But don't get it twisted. This is still the best team in the NBA. But they're not going to be the number 1 seed. They're going to have to settle for number 2, I think, this year. And I think they're fine with that. As long as they're healthy going into the playoffs. Number 3. The Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Bucks got something to prove. I think this is a team that's also, this one could make me look kind of dumb, I think. The Bucks are an older, injury, laden team. I'm confident in them, though. I think they upgraded on the margins. I don't think they needed to upgrade much. It really comes down to injury luck for these guys. But they still went out. And they got Gary Trent Jr. to replace Malik Beasley. Taurean Prince upgrade over Jay Crowder is just massive. So I think they went out and they made these great upgrades on the margins. I think Giannis and Dame have something to prove this year, and I think they're the 3rd seed. At the 4th seed, got the Indiana Pacers. Is it the year for Andre Jackson to take over? Listen, I hope so. When it comes to the Bucks, that's the one guy that I've been advocating that I want to see more of. I think it needs to be Andre Jackson and AJ Green getting more playing time this year. I don't think we can just run our, vets into the ground and try to play them heavy minutes like most years. But, hopefully, Doc might, but I think this is the year that Andre Jackson and AJ Green and just the young guys in general, they need to step up so these guys can, these vets can get their rest and be a little more juiced up for the postseason. At 4, I got Indiana. I like Indiana. I think they're a fast-paced and fun team. And their defense looked a lot better last year. Like in the second half of the season, I actually thought they looked really good defensively. Just overall, like getting Pascal helped. So I think that this is a team that it's going to be improved defensively just even from last year to this year. And I think it'll be enough for them to take the 4 seed. Now, I do think the team behind them, the Philadelphia 76ers, are a better team than them. I think the Philadelphia 76ers could end up having an argument as the second best team in the East. But this is the team that I'm putting them at 5, and I'm comfortable doing that because of injuries. Flat out. I think talent-wise, they're up there with any team in the NBA. However, we're already seeing it. Like, Paul George just suffered an unfortunate injury. Nothing he can do about that. But he's already missing like a week or so. Joel Embiid, not playing back-to-backs. He even said he's probably never playing back-to-backs. So, between Embiid missing time, Paul George normally misses some time, the squad behind him, little older. So, I think just injuries are going to keep this team closer to the 4th or 5th seed. I want to put them at the 5th seed, but I can easily see them going anywhere from like 2 to 5 because I do believe in the Philadelphia 76ers. I just don't believe in their health over an 82-game season. At number 6, give me the Orlando Magic. Now, these next 2 teams I have, because 6 and 7, I have the Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't think they got worse. I think they'll fall in the standings, but it's more so the East just got better. The Knicks improved. Milwaukee improved. Philly improved. Overall, this is a team that you're looking at teams that just improved, I think, more significantly than them. And I think the Orlando Magic did improve. I think the addition of Contagious Caldwell-Pope is really going to help them out. Now, I don't know how much, but I think he is an upgrade over Gary Harris. And I think this team is still good enough for the 6th seed. I think we see the ascension of Paulo Banchero. I think you can make an argument that also the ascension of Franz Wagner. And I've seen people make the argument that Wagner is actually the better player than Banchero. I still believe in Paulo Banchero. Before his rookie season, I picked him to win an MVP award. I'm still riding or dying on that. But I think that just shows how immensely talented that duo is for the Orlando Magic. And I think that duo can easily take them to the playoffs again. I think they easily make it. But I think that they can make a deep run this year. More consistent shooting to space the floor around Banchero, Wagner. And Wagner's got to, do better than he did in the elimination game. But overall, I love where this team is going. They're young. They're adding to their core. They're only going to get better. And Cleveland, once again, I don't think that they necessarily got worse. I just think everybody above them got better. Now we get into more play-in spots. Number 8, give me the Miami Heat. Listen, I'm not fond of the Miami Heat because they always seem to give my Bucks fits when they get into the playoffs outside of 2021. And honestly, I'm just not fond of them because that roster does not look great. Looking at them on paper, it doesn't look great. However, Spo always finds a way. At this point, I'm convinced you can give them your local YMCA team against NBA competition, and he'd find a way to sneak that team into the playoffs. He's just that good of a coach. I don't feel comfortable moving them up any higher than 8, but I don't feel comfortable putting them any lower because I know Spo is going to make me look stupid. So overall, 8 seed Miami Heat. I'll take it. Now, here's might be we got the 9 seed Atlanta Hawks. I think Trae Young by himself offensively is kind of too good for this team not to make a play-in game. I think he's, another year in the development. They lost to DeJounte Murray, but obviously they gained Zachary Rashier. They got the number 1 pick. Bogdanovich. Maybe we see a healthy DeAndre Hunter, although granted that's totally been an unreasonable ask so far. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But overall, I think this team is talented enough to just sneak into the playoffs. So at the 9th seed, got the Atlanta Hawks. And at the 10th seed, this might be the surprising one. I got the Charlotte Hornets. I'm going to go bold. LaMelo, Bridges, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. I think this team has a lot of young and really fun talent in general. I think they're just a very overall talented team. I think they're going to go on a great run. And I think they might, fade down the stretch. But overall, I think that this team is going to be that sleeper team that sneaks into the play-in. Every year we normally get, 1 or 2 sleeper teams that nobody saw coming that sneak into the playoffs. And I think this is going to be one of them. And look at that. It is the greatest co-host of all time. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great. Got some business taken care of. And then how can I not be excited to join the man himself on N1 podcast, Talking Hoops?
All right. I already did like an underrated player, Mo. You know how that's how we start, though. Did you have an underrated player for this week?
Off the top of my head, you know what? I got a name. It just hit me. Underrated. I don't know if he's underrated, but he did an achievement that a very few players of his ilk have done. I'm talking about Tony Delk. Tony Delk was a little bit of a journeyman, played for the Phoenix Suns. But Tony Delk exploded and had a huge 50-point game one time. I think he was playing with Phoenix at the time. Streaky scorer, but when he was on, Tony Delk was a bucket. So Tony Delk is my underrated NBA player this week.
He's one of the favorite names that come up for most random 50-point games. I love it.
Yes.
So what I'm doing, Mo, is I predicted how the entire East standing and West is going to play out this year. So I'm going to start at 1 and see if you agree with my take so far. And I even threw in a sleeper team to sneak in. So at 1, I got the New York Knicks. I think they're going to be the healthiest team, which for this number 1 seed is normally huge. And I think they're talented. At number 2, we got the Boston Celtics. At number 3, the Milwaukee Bucks. Number 4, Indiana Pacers. At number 5, that's where I put the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm just anxious to put them up any higher because of health reasons. It's always one thing or the other with that team. At number 6, I got Orlando. 7, Cleveland. Those 2, I said that I don't necessarily think they got worse because they're, I dropped them in the standings relative to last year. I think everybody above them just got better. At number 8, the Miami Heat. Number 9, the Atlanta Hawks. And my surprise team that sneaks into the play-in in the East, number 10, the Charlotte Hornets.
Wow, that is a really surprise team. I mean, the only thing more surprising would have been if you'd picked the Pistons. But I think the only change I would make, and look, it's subjective. It's a pick 'em to me. I would put Philly ahead of the Pacers only because I think the Pacers are very good, but you don't really contend for titles with with one star. And Siakam is an all-star. I know Halliburton is an all-star, but neither one of them to me are superstars. And the Pacers have a good roster, but there's not really a third guy that can drop 20 a night. And I know potentially coming into this year, if he's healthy, Benjamin Mathurin could be that guy, but I don't know if he will be. I think Indiana actually takes a step back. It's not a huge step back. They're going to make the playoffs, but I would put Philly in front of them. Whatever happens in the postseason with Philly, what's going to be is going to be. But throughout the regular season, they have one guy that you can throw the ball into the post, and if you don't double team him, he's going to dominate the paint. I think Tyrese Maxey. Here's an interesting question. Maxey's not what I would call a natural point guard. He's more of a combo guard. I don't think he plays the position of point guard better than Halliburton, but I would make the argument he's as good or better player than Halliburton. There's a difference. And so I think I'll put Philly. I think I'll put Philly ahead of Indiana. I think Halliburton takes not a step back, but I don't think he takes a step forward, which he needs to do if he's going to elevate his franchise. I think Maxey takes a step forward in his development as a player, in his development as a playmaker, a bucket getter. I just think he's a better player. So other than that, I love your list. Although the Charlotte thing blew me away. Maybe I don't love the Charlotte thing because that's a hot take to me. But I'm looking at the Eastern Conference and I'm like, well, when you look at the back end, why not Charlotte? They do have talent. It's just a matter of it all coming together. So I don't think that's a crazy take at all, my friend. So I'm with you. I love your list. We only disagree on one thing, and that's really the difference between 4 and 5.
Reverse Enigma says this is TJ Tony Parker McConnell slander. That man does play a little like Tony Parker.
I like TJ McConnell a lot. He's not Tony Parker.
Oh man, I love it.
Let's calm down.
I almost put Philly at 4, and that really could be flipped. And I think Philly's actually a better team than Indiana. It really just came down to with them. Is I was like, all right, Philly's the healthier, like the better team, but I think Indiana will be the healthier team.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
That's the hard part with me. It's all right. It's pretty much trying to predict the health of Joel Embiid, Paul George duo with DeAnthony Melton. Oh, wait, no, Melton went to the Warriors, but
he did.
But no, just trying to predict some of these guys' health on that team is just a Rubik's Cube. So
yeah, look, that part is unpredictable throughout the league. If we do every list we make and go, if everybody's healthy, because if I could go with if everybody's healthy and there's going to be no major injuries, why wouldn't the Memphis Grizzlies be one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the NBA? Of course they would be. Of course they would be.
Oh, don't worry, Mo. I got a list for the West too. But to round out my list, I got the 11 seed Chicago Bulls, number 12 Toronto Raptors, 13 Detroit Pistons. I don't think they'll be the worst team in the East. I actually think there'll be a couple worst. I think they'll be better than the 14 seed Brooklyn Nets, and 15 Washington Wizards.
The Wizards, you're spot on. I just had a thought because I had made the case about this a couple of weeks back. I look at the trio of Scotty Barnes, along with Emmanuel Quickly. What's the other young man that came from the Knicks?
Barrett?
Yes, Barrett. His name skipped me, but I like their trio better than the Pacers trio. I'm not saying they're better than the Pacers because I don't think they are, but I would argue that trio is better than the trio that the Hornets have. I'll take that trio to get into the playoffs.
My prediction with the Hornets pretty much lies on one thing, and it's me making a dice roll on the health of LaMelo Ball. I'm very high on the high end of LaMelo Ball. When he does play, he's absolutely terrific. I think a healthy LaMelo Ball with another jump from Brandon Miller as much as we don't like, as much as, he's a terrible human being, Miles Bridges is also a hell of a talent with another year of
He is.
development from Mark Williams. I think that's a big four that they all hit their stride at the same time this year, which I think is going to happen. I think you get a healthy LaMelo Ball, and I think they'll sneak in. I think they'll barely sneak into that 10th spot. I think they can be one and done once they get there. But honestly, even a one and done appearance is a huge upgrade from what they've been doing these past few years.
No question. The thing about that is, for me, if Charlotte's going to have a shot at making the playoffs, they have to get off to a fast start. That's what I believe. I think they have to get off to a fast start. And they have to do something they're not known for doing, and that's getting stops on defense. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I think the back end of the East, you can flip around on a few teams because I think they're that close in terms of talent. It's funny because I heard another person who's very knowledgeable in the NBA, and he was trying to make the point that there's much more talent right now in each conference, and I was like, I don't really see that or believe that. I think that if you tell me the one thing that's consistent about the NBA when you talk about the three major sports, the NBA has always and will always be a top heavy league. Yes, 8 teams will make the playoffs, but there are not 8 title contenders in each conference. That's not reality. In reality, and this hasn't changed going back to the 80s, there are 4 teams in the East who are title contenders. And you mentioned them at the top. You said the Knicks. You said the defending champion Celtics. At some point, you brought up the Sixers and the Pacers. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not title contenders. I don't even think Indiana's a title contender, actually. They're just not a lot of there's a difference between playoff and title contenders. There's always been 4 good teams in each conference throughout since I've been watching basketball. That hasn't changed. It's a top-heavy league. It's always been a top-heavy league. The 8th seed in the West is not going to win the title. They're not. I've seen teams go on amazing runs, but they're not going to win the title. One of the 4 best teams in the West is going to the finals. Same for the East. The league actually has not changed. I would push back on the notion that it's changed. The style of play has changed, but the idea that there's suddenly this wealth of parity, there isn't a wealth of parity. There's 4 teams in the East we think can win the title. There's 4 teams in the West we think can win the title. Not 8 teams, 4 teams. I think what people get confused about is you're listening to name recognition.
All right, I think we're having some technical difficulties.
And I'm back.
Oh, there it is.
But yeah, that's all I really wanted to point out to people. If your franchise like Detroit, like Charlotte, is synonymous with losing, and you haven't been relevant in years, making the playoff is a step forward. It's an improvement. I fully believe that. But you're not a title contender. If the Dallas Mavericks, who went to the finals last year, do I think they're a lock to go back to the finals because they went on that great run? I do not. I think the Mavericks are one of the top 5 teams in the West, but I don't look at them and go, by far, the Dallas Mavericks are the best team in the West. I think that's fictional. I think that's fiction. I think you could go back and still go Denver, even though Denver lost. Who they lose to? Minnesota? Okay. And then you can go to a younger team who's actually more talented than either one of those teams, Brett, top to bottom, in Oklahoma City. I just think that, look, I love the NBA. You love the NBA. But the notion that there's parity, there's not parity. There never has been.
No, that's fair. I think people mistake, like, it's nice that a new team just keeps winning the title every year. Like the suspense is kind of fun in that regard. But yeah, in the sense of you're not going to see a team like most teams that win the title, they're a top 3 seed in the conference. You rarely see a 4 seed or under win a title. I don't think we've really seen a 4 seed or under win a title since, forever ago. That might have been those Hakeem Rockets, honestly.
You know what? I think both times his Rockets won, they were like 5th or 6th seeds. Like, you know what I mean? They didn't go into the postseason like with the best record in the West, or that, and that's more exception than rule. That's just a fact. I don't remember when's the last time an 8th seed won at all?
If never. The last time we saw one, weren't the Knicks an 8th seed when they made it to the finals against the Spurs?
Yes, because they pulled off one of the amazing upsets in NBA history when they took out Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning's Heat, who had won, I think they won like 60, 61, 62 games. It was something crazy. They had been the best team in the regular season, and they lost to the 8th seeded Knicks, who ended up going on a great run, got to the finals, and then lost to the Spurs in the finals. But other than that 8th seed making that run, and even that 8th seed didn't end up winning the title. I could be wrong, and somebody could contact me and let me know, but I'm willing to bet in the history of the NBA, there is no 8th seed that won the title.
Nah, normally Cinderella teams like that, they'll make the nice run to the finals, and then reality just hits in the finals. Like those Knicks. They made it all the way to the finals, and the reward was to get just slapped around by the Spurs.
and not what it wasn't too long ago, Brett. We saw Jimmy Butler and the Heat go on an amazing run, and they had no business but they ended up in the finals. Great run, and then they got smacked around and they lost the title. 8th seeds don't win championships; they just don't.
No, that's fair. And for the West, I got some surprising predictions in here as well, Mo. Because it's tough. Prediction lists are always tough because nothing ever plays out the way you think they will. Injuries. So, but for the top 3 seeds, it's the same as last year. 1 seed OKC, 2 seed Denver, 3 seed Minnesota. I know Denver lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but I think this is a team again. If you have Nikola Jokic, that is good enough. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, that's still good enough for second in the West. We can get into a playoff discussion about this team, and that'll be a different story, but I think even with Christian Braun replacing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at the 2 spot, I think that this is still a 2 seed in the West.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to your point, yeah, I think Denver will be terrific in the regular season. I think they'll win 50 plus games. The challenge for them is once you get to the postseason and it's required of you to have some kind of depth. That'll be the challenge. And maybe they can establish that in the regular season with some of their younger players. Look, I think Christian Braun is fully capable of being similar to KCP. Now, he's not the shooter, but how do I know that he hasn't been in the lab working on his shot, improving upon that? Maybe a couple of the other young players step up and they have more bench depth than a lot of us anticipate them having. I'm going to say this. I actually think more times than not, they're going to benefit from Russell Westbrook being on the floor. I think if he recognizes what he is now, if he recognizes if I move without the ball and I cut back door, how many lobs or how many layups is Joker going to get me by me moving without the ball? There is going to be value in having Russ if they use him the right way and he buys into it. So I'm with you. I think Denver is going to be one of the top 3 teams in the West for sure.
So at the 4 seed, Mo, got the Dallas Mavericks. At the 5 seed, you mentioned them earlier. This is going to be the biggest jump for any team. I got the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they'll have one of the best starting 5s in the game. We got Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson, Zach Edey. I think that starting 5 is just going to blow teams away. Number 6, give me the Sacramento Kings. I think this is the perfect spot for them. I think this is going to be a great team. The issue is, if you want to be a high seed in the West, you got to be more than a great team, it seems. Because this is just an absolute bloodbath that's going on over in the West. Because honestly, this is like 12 teams deep that could easily make a play, and actually 13 teams could realistically make a play-in spot or a playoff spot.
I fully, and that is where I agree on that there's parity. There's parity in that there are more opportunities for more teams to potentially make the playoffs. Like you said, in the West, there might be 10 or 11 teams, maybe 12 teams that win 47, 48 games, and a few of them are going home. So, yeah, it on the back end of the West, think about what you just said. You mentioned the Kings at 6. We haven't even gotten to the Suns. We haven't gotten to the Lakers. Like, the back of the West is brutal. It's brutal. Do I think any of those teams have the potential to just get on a run late in the season? Sure. You and I both said this. Whenever you've got a Kevin Durant and a Devin Booker and now a capable point guard, could they get on a hot streak and just go on? The potential for that is there. But that's the same potential I would tell people that a LeBron James, Anthony Davis team has. Wherever Phoenix is ranked, I got to believe the Lakers are right next to them.
You would be right. At 7 seed, the Los Angeles Lakers, 8 seed, Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
This is where I got a little crazy, Mo. These last 2 spots, because I feel like this is not going to shake out like anybody predicts. And to me, this was the toughest one. At 9, you know what? I'll go with them. I'll go with the Golden State Warriors, though. They sneak in. You know, Steph Curry wills them there. At number 10, give me the Houston Rockets. That is my bold prediction. The Houston Rockets are the one that take the 10 seed. And the Los Angeles Clippers, the New Orleans Pelicans, end up on the outside looking in. I got at number 11 is the New Orleans Pelicans. At number 12, give me the San Antonio Spurs. At 13, Los Angeles Clippers. 14, the Utah Jazz. 15, Portland Trailblazers. This West was so hard to predict, and I didn't. I could have played it safe and just went, Clippers, but I didn't want to play it safe. I really didn't. So that's my prediction for this year. That's my predictive list. This could look awesome at the end of the year. It could also look very stupid. But overall, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Curry gets one last run. And the Houston Rockets shock everybody, and they sneak into that last spot.
I like your list. The only thing I would throw out there into the ether, I think my dark horse to make a play-in, I think the San Antonio Spurs. That's my dark horse. You could tell me top to bottom, Houston has more talent than San Antonio. That would be a factual statement. But if they were to play in a series, I could tell you, and I'd be right, that San Antonio would have the best player in that series.
The things that stop me with San Antonio is everybody else. I think Wemby is going to be so good that he's going to be an all-NBA caliber player this year. My prediction for him would put him firmly on the all-NBA second team. I think the issue is just, I don't think these other young guys are going to be far enough along. You got Jeremy Showen. You're going to have Stephon Castle playing a big role, but he's a rookie. Chris Paul, how many minutes can you really trust him to give you? Harrison Barnes was legitimately bad last year. I think Wemby's going to be good enough that he's going to keep the San Antonio Spurs in play-in contention, like right up until the final day of the season. I just think that everybody else is going to fail them. And I think next year you're going to see some big moves from the Spurs to really finally weaponize this team around Wemby.
So I think what people forget about is they already have a young man on the team that's about a 20-point per game scorer, right? I can't remember his name right now. They just gave him a contract extension.
Keldon Johnson?
Huh? No, Keldon Johnson is actually I would call him their third best player. But I'm talking about the other young, huh?
Isn't it Devin Vassell?
Yes, Vassell's a bucket getter. And I think he's one of those guys that he's gotten better throughout his career. The only thing that's holding Keldon Johnson back from being where Vassell is, Keldon Johnson can't shoot. He flat out can't shoot. What he can do though is he can break most people down off the dribble and attack the basket. He's terrific off the bounce. He's terrific once he's in a restricted area, but he can't shoot. There's a role for Keldon Johnson. Personally, I think he should be a six man where he could go up against other teams' second tier players. I think the Spurs have more talent than people predict or see. I agree with you. You can't play Chris Paul 30, 35 minutes. But if you told me he was on a pitch count and he was going to play 25 or 28 minutes, I think that's plenty. I still think Chris Paul is going to impact Wemby on offense, and he's going to make him even more impactful on defense. I'm not predicting it's a lock that the Spurs get into the postseason, but what I would tell people is because the back end of the West is so close, it's such a dogfight. Remember how that works. All those teams beat up on each other. That means there's an opportunity for somebody else to elevate. Not to mention the NBA, especially as we've learned recently, it's not a sprint. It's a war of attrition. Like you said, well, how long can Chris Paul hold up? Well, how many you could go down? What list do you want to hit? Is AD going to miss time? Is KD going to miss time in Phoenix? Is Bradley? That applies to everybody. That applies to everybody. It is a war of attrition, and maybe it comes down to the deeper team. What I would say to people who doubt the Spurs is, remember, they come into the season with house money. They're not expected to make the playoffs. They're not. That's fine. That's the smart call. If you told me they're not gonna make the playoffs, I'm like, I can understand why you would see that. What I'm saying is I trust Chris Paul, I trust Wemby, I trust Vassell more than I trust a team like the Pelicans. I don't trust the Pelicans at all. There's nothing in the Pelicans track record that I should trust at all, starting with their best player, starting with him. So I feel like if Wemby is everything you and I think he's going to be this season, which means he's going to be in the top 2 for DPOY. He's probably going to be singular in terms of most improved. He wins that going away. He's probably, let's say Wemby averages, I'm going to take him up to 26 and 14 with 4 blocks. He's going to be an MVP candidate. If he's all those things, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, some of the other young pieces you talked about, and then a veteran like Chris Paul, a veteran like Harrison Barnes, you don't think this team could win 38 games? Like, I get it. Steph is one of the all-time greats. We've had a debate about Steph and where he should be ranked and all those kind of things. But I would argue that San Antonio's roster is better than Golden State's roster. It is. And the argument, well, they got Steph. And I'd be like, well, they got Wemby. They got Wemby. As great as Steph has been, Wemby's just coming up. Steph is on the other side of his prime. So I'll take the Spurs to be better than the Warriors. And unless Golden State makes a trade, if this is the team they roll with throughout the season, they're not making the playoffs. They flat out don't have enough talent. They're not going to make the playoffs.
Hey, that's fair enough. My original, and I'm not going to lie, that was like, I swapped it around at the last minute. I initially had Golden State missing the playoffs, and then I moved them back in, and then I moved them out. I was like, you know what, we're just going to keep them in for good measure. But if you tell me Golden State's going to miss the playoffs, it's not something I would disagree with. I think it's a very real possibility this year.
Now, if you ask me what I want to happen, Brett, as a basketball fan, I'm spoiled. So I want to see KD go on a deep playoff run. I want to see Steph one more time in a big series in the postseason, shooting the lights out in a meaningful game. I want all the members of the older guard, if you will, that would include LeBron and a few other guys. I want them all to be in the postseason. You know what I mean? Like, I want them all to go out on their swords one more time, right? One more time in the light. I think that's great for the league. That's great for the fans, because there is going to be a huge turnover when all these superstars that are 35 and older all bounce around the same time.
No, that's fair enough. And I figure keep the predictions right on rolling, Mo, because I'm just going all in today. I'm also going to try to predict the award winners.
Okay, that'll be fun.
So we'll start off with the MVP. I think this one's going to be a guard this year. And to me, my list is down to 2. Now, granted, there's like 5 or 6 people that can win MVP. But I think it's either going to be Luka Doncic
Or
it's going to be
SGA.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think it's going to be SGA. So my pre-year MVP prediction, SGA.
You know what? I'm with you, partner. Great minds think alike. Everything is set up for SGA to be MVP and for Oklahoma City to snag the number 1 seed in the West. Look, they have every element you need. The crazy thing about them is, Brett, before they added Caruso, before they added Hartenstein, they were extremely deep already. They were extremely deep already with Isaiah Joe and Wiggins. Like they are insanely deep. And when you take away a couple of players, most of their core, obviously outside Caruso, they're like 25 and under. Most of their core is. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm with you. I think it's between Luka and SGA, and if Luka wins, wouldn't surprise me. If I'm calling it. I think SGA wins, but if Luka wins, I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm going to be like, yeah, that's the other guy. So I think Joker's going to always be in the hunt because he's Joker, right? He's always in the hunt. The same way in the Eastern Conference, if you're Giannis is always going to be in the MVP hunt, right? You can book Giannis. It's like clockwork. Give me 30, give me 11, give me around 6 assists, a block, a steal, shoot a high percentage. He's going to be in the top 5. And look, if Giannis goes a little above and beyond and he has an elite season, like he's always been a good defender, but if he goes back to where he's a dominant defender, especially from the weak side, and he's up for DPOY, I'll never rule out Giannis and Joker for MVP, but I'm with you. The favorites to me are Luka and SGA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, we have a defensive player of the year. This one's going to be boring. I'm just going to say Wemby.
I think it's going to be Wemby. I just hope he deserves it. And I'm saying that to say this. There's no question he's going to be incredibly impactful defensively and he'll be better. But the guy that's won it multiple times, I feel like at some point the writers or the voters, they get a little bit worn down by putting in the same name, right? But if Rudy Gobert has the same numbers, the same production, the same analytic numbers that bear out what he does on the court, if he has the same season or something close to that, it'll be really interesting to see where he finishes for DPOY. Because I don't think it's a mistake that he won it. I think he flat out earned it. I have no doubt in my mind that Wemby's probably going to average around 4 blocks a game. And so what are people going to point out? You got 4 blocks. The 4 blocks a game are like a big shiny object. But is he going to have the advanced numbers that bear out his impact on the floor the way Gobert does? That's all I'm saying. I'm not against Wemby. I just think that no great defensive player has been hammered as much as Rudy Gobert.
No, I agree, and it's funny, Mo, because everybody loves to look at blocks for like big men for defensive player of the year, and I think that can be one of the most misleading stats ever. And the name I bring up for this argument is Hassan Whiteside, because Hassan Whiteside was a guy that would, he should be in consideration for DPOY. Oh, he has like 3-4 blocks a game. Okay, did you watch it 3 or 4 blocks a game? It's him completely getting out of position, hunting these blocks. So, yes, he's getting his 4 blocks a game, but he's getting up 10 points off just dump offs and handoffs because he's way out of position. His man is an easy dunk to the basket. So, I'm with you on that. And like I said, I just wanted to throw that out there that I think blocks are maybe one of the more misleading stats because some of them are just, okay, you got a block. That's great. But now the other team got the offensive rebound and your man's unguarded because you just threw yourself out of position.
And I'm not saying that blocking shots has no value. It absolutely has value. But what you made a great example using Whiteside. I was going to go further back. I think Manute Bol had a year where he averaged almost 6 blocks a game, but his team was getting eaten alive. I mean, because he wasn't really good at recovering. Because, like you said, he was hunting blocks. He would end up with 6 blocks, but they wouldn't show the highlights where he had got dunked on like 5 times in the same game. Like everybody tried the man, but they pointed out he got 6 blocks. And I would point back to the other people, like there's a reason why he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year. You know what I mean? Like what I know you looked at the blocks, the big shiny object. He wasn't really a good defender. He just wasn't. The man was 7'7". By default, you should wake up. You should roll out of bed with 3 blocks. You're 7'7".
No, that's fair. I just think in general, thumb stats are just very misleading when people are like assists. You see some of the crazy things get rewarded for assists. Like I pass it to somebody and they don't like to do a whole 2-step, do a whole dribble move, fade away, bang, assist. Like, excuse me?
But they do that, and I thought that was funny because I'm like, wait a minute, I throw the ball up to you, you split 2 defenders, and I get credit for setting you up for success. Okay, I'll take that.
No, absolutely. Now, here's one of my hot takes for this year, Mo. And understand my hot takes for any new listener that we got. I don't make hot takes without thinking that they're realistic. I'm not going to throw in a hot take just for it to be a hot take. I'm going to throw in a hot take that I think could realistically happen. I think one of the big reasons that the Rockets are going to make a leap is because I think Reed Sheppard is going to come into the NBA and just take off running. He's not going to stumble. He's going to take off running. I think not only Reed Sheppard is going to be Rookie of the Year, I'm going to make the bold prediction that he takes home 6th Man of the Year as well.
Ah, that's interesting. See, you have me sold, partner, on Reed Sheppard. But the guy that I think has a legitimate shot for 6th Man of the Year is actually his teammate, Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore he's a monster. He's one of those players that the other team isn't stopping him. His coach is stopping him. His coach is holding him back. I get what people want from Jalen Green, and he might be that, but he's got to shoot better than 42% from the field. He's got to be a lot more efficient. He's a volume scorer right now. He's got to be a lot more efficient. But my point is, Cam Whitmore is a natural scorer. He's a physical athlete. He's one of those power guards. He's a 2-guard, Brett, but he weighs about 235, 240. He's a big man. I think he and Reed Sheppard, you brought up a point that I didn't even think about, that he and Reed Sheppard, because of what they can do, both of them coming off the bench, I think the Rockets in a sneaky way has one of the deepest teams in the NBA.
And you know what? You mentioned him earlier. I know it's funny because Jalen, I'm not going to pick him to win the award, right? But I do think that Jalen Green is a dark horse for that award. And there's so many ways that you can go with the most improved player, but like, would you be shocked, Mo, if Jalen Green ended up with the award if he improved that efficiency just even a little bit?
No, I mean, yeah, look, the kid is incredibly talented. If he took the 42% to say 45%, he took the 3-point shooting at least up to the league average. Yeah, he has so much natural talent. It's interesting because this is a really odd year where if the ball bounces the right way, Brett, all 3 teams from Texas has a shot to maybe make the playoffs. Maybe.
But for most improved, if he's going to take the jump that we're talking about, I think the only answer for most improved is Victor Wembanyama. If somebody not named Victor's winning it, I think it's going to be Evan Mobley. I think one of those 2 are going to win it, but I think Wemby should be the betting favorite. if I had to guess. I think that's the only right answer for that award, too.
And here's the interesting part. You brought up Evan Mobley, who I'm a fan of him. I like him. He's a good player. I still don't think him and Allen work. But for Evan Mobley to win it, he needs to do something that Victor Wembanyama already can do. Victor Wemby's already a better shooter from the perimeter than Evan Mobley. For the Cavaliers to take a jump forward and be more effective offensively and more consistent, Evan Mobley's got to prove that he can hit jump shots on a consistent basis. They don't have to all be threes, but he's got to shoot a higher percentage than he's done.
And Coach of the Year, it's going to be a little bit of a hot take for quite a few people, but I think it makes sense. If you followed my standings, I think this will make a ton of sense. Because I think even sneaking into the play-in would be enough to get this guy Coach of the Year. I'm talking about, I think the Charlotte Hornets will have a great year, and Charles Lee surprises everybody and wins Coach of the Year. I think that this is, once again, it's a little bit of a bold take. The Hornets are going to do good this year, and I think they're going to do so good that we're going to see Charles Lee win a Coach of the Year. Might be crazy. There's a lot of great coaches in the league, but I think this is a hot take. This is one of my hot takes, and I'm going to stick to it because I think it's possible.
I think that's possible. I think it's very. I wonder how many times a championship caliber coach has turned around years later and won Coach of the Year. Could Popovich be a Coach of the Year candidate? Yeah, maybe. It would be fun. It'd be a nice capper to an incredible Hall of Fame career. I just think the back end of both conferences are so deep. It's just going to be incredibly entertaining. But I love your Charlotte pick. And yes, if that young core can come together, Brett, Charles Lee is going to pull off something amazing. If he's not Coach of the Year, he must be top 2, right? If he's not, if he can get them in the postseason, to me, if he gets them to the postseason, he's got to be Coach of the Year. He's got to be. It should be a runaway.
Reverse Enigma's trolling you right now, saying Doc Rivers.
Doc's not going to win. Doc's not going to win Coach of the Year, but I will say this for everybody out there listening: Doc has one job: lead the Milwaukee Bucks to a title. That's job. That's his job. Title.
No, that's fair. And you know what? I kind of already stated my top 30 players, Mo. So I think I thought about doing an all-NBA team, and then I realized I can literally just go down my list and just try to guess which players are going to play 65 games. And I think, honestly, looking at it, I think I actually got a good idea here. So Jokic, I'll say he does. So I got all NBA first team. Jokic, Giannis, I'll say Luka hits it, and SGA. Embiid's my 5th player on this list. I don't think he hits 65 games. So we're going to disqualify him for health reasons. However, if he's healthy, he's my 5th player. But I think a big reason why I got the Golden State Warriors on here, Steph Curry has one more year and sneaks onto the All-NBA first team. He has that one final hoorah.
So let me ask you this. If you've got Steph making first team All-NBA, I have him making All-NBA, but not first team. But if you have him making All-NBA first team, what does his numbers look like? Because for me, for Steph to make first team All-NBA, he's got to have a season that's borderline MVP caliber. Like 25-5 is not going to get it. Like Steph's going to have to put up 28 or 30. And because I think that's what it's going to take for him to lift Golden State into the postseason. And even then, I think that's a big lift. I like your Sacramento pick because you already know what Sabonis and Fox can do. You already know what Keegan Murray can do. You bring in a DeMar, and that just gives you another closer. That gives you 2 closers because let's face it, as good as he is, Sabonis isn't a closer. But now you have 2 perimeter closers who both shoot over 80% from the free throw line when needed. Like, I think that's what makes Sacramento interesting. But I digress. If you're right about Steph, and I want you to be right, by the way, because like I said, I want the old guard to all go out in a blaze of glory. So I don't think KD, LeBron, Steph are all going to make. Well, you know what? They might make all NBA, but I don't think any of them are going to make first team all NBA. But I hope I'm wrong on this. If Steph has the kind of year that you foresee him having, then we're gonna have we're in for an amazing season. And I hope you're right because of that.
Yeah, I think he's gonna up his scoring. I think he's gonna have to. I think he'll get to. Last year he's at 26. I could see it adding another 3. I think he scores 28 or 29 a game. I think this will be like when you look back at the career of Steph Curry. I think this will be the final year where this will be like that last shebang for Steph. He barely sneaks on, and if he doesn't, well, then I think we see Wemby on an All NBA first team sooner rather than later.
Okay, let me ask you this, because in the bigger picture, you've got Golden State making the playoffs. So, does that mean that you think Jonathan Kuminga makes another leap in his development in terms of what he does on offense and defense? And let me throw in a guy like Pajinski, because I think Paz he's just a gamer, but guys like that help you win. So do you think they both kind of elevate themselves this year?
Yeah, I think they both take a leap. I think they both elevate themselves. And I cannot believe I really don't think Andrew Wiggins will be as off as last year.
I hope.
I don't think so.
We always root for the underdogs, if you will. I don't need Wiggins to score 20 a game, but if he can look close to the Wiggins from a couple of years back, let's say Andrew Wiggins averages 16, 5 and 5 and shoots a decent percentage from 3. I think that would be a very good season for him.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of the big thing for me is I think Wiggins will have a bounce back year, and I think guys like Kuminga and Pods will step up. And Kevon Looney, he's a solid piece.
Don't forget about the young man from Indiana. He's nice, the one that's fighting Looney for the starting job.
Yeah, they also just got Melton, who
correct.
He's an absolute playmaker. That man's always near the top of the league in steals. So he gets into the passing lanes and he makes stuff happen. So this team could be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if they last long in the playoffs, but I think getting there will be an adventure.
And let's be honest, the fun thing about making the predictions is you're going to be right more times than not, but there's going to be a couple of your picks where you're going to go, well, who could see that coming? You know what I mean? Because somebody's going to have a career year that we were like, well, I didn't see that happening, or there's going to be the nagging injuries. It's the reason why I've been out on the Clippers a couple of years ago, but now you look at the Clippers and they want you to sell. They want to sell us on you're getting ready to see James Harden from Houston, and you and I both know better because James Harden from Houston was 29, 30 years old. This James Harden is just old James Harden. Are there going to be games where he drops 38 and 8? Yeah, he's going to have a few of those blip games. Can he sustain that over the bulk of the season? Look, I'm not rooting against the guy because he's part of that old guard I was talking about. I don't see that. What I see is, if you ask me, what do I think if I project James Harden's numbers for the season, I'll go 20 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds.
No, I think that's a good one too. Second team, give me Wemby, but I also think that him and Steph could very easily be flipped. Put Wemby on the first team, Steph on the second team, but I'm going to predict that Wemby hits all NBA second team. Joining him, another member of that old guard, Kevin Durant, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, and this one's probably going to be the surprise for most, Tyrese Halliburton.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got LeBron on third team all NBA. Oh.
I think that was the one where actually it's funny when I did this one, it was with Gene. And that was the one he really disagreed with.
Yeah, I do too.
And you know what? That's all right. I think there's like a 50-50 chance that my Tyrese Halliburton prediction, because I put him down as the 11th best player in the NBA.
Look, I think I don't think it's a bad prediction. I guess what I'm saying is, do I think Halliburton has the ability to kind of replicate what he and the Pacers did last year? Absolutely. But if I'm going bigger picture, and I'm not talking about this guy's record versus this guy's team record, do I think LeBron will have a better season than Halliburton, just as individual talents? Yeah, he will. Now, do I know if the Lakers win 47 games versus the Pacers winning 52? I don't know any of that, because the East and the West, the back end of both of those are completely different from one another. I think the East, the back end is more set in stone. The West is so crazy because you could be the 5th seed, but there could only be 2 games separating the 5th seed and the 10th seed. Like, that's how crazy the West is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Halliburton, like, he's tough because he looked so incredible that first half of the year before he suffered the injury. And then he suffered that injury and he looked more mortal. Like, he was still really good. I would say he's still like top 20 player, even top 15 in the NBA good. But for that first half of the year, he was just insanely incredible. I think he's going to play closer to that all year. Hopefully he doesn't suffer another big injury that kind of throws off his game. And I'm hoping for that. You know, he's going to go for like 22 and 11 on close to 50, 40, 90 and lead one of the best offenses in the league. And I think that what's going to really elevate him over some of these guys too, and I tried to take this into account, is I think he's going to have a better record than them. I think he's going to lead better offenses than most of them. And I think, and this is big too, I think the Pacers, second half defensively, I think they really stepped it up. They really, after the addition of Pascal Siakam, they really looked much better on defense. Guys like Ben Shepherd, Nembhard, they all really came into their own, and they were competing defensively. So, I think
if you tell me he's going to go 22 and 11, that tells me he's going to touch the paint a lot more. That he's going to attack and be in the restricted area much more. If he's going to do that, then he's going to make second team All NBA. And I would say that a guy that they don't talk about a lot on Indiana in terms of defense, but I think he's probably their second most consistent defender is Nesmith. I think Nesmith matches up well with all perimeter players, and the guy shot over 40% from 3. So he's elevated himself to being one of the better 3-and-D guys in the NBA. Look, I think it's going to be hard pressed to repeat what they did, but it starts with Halliburton. If you're right and he's 22 and 11, that means that he's not only improved himself, he's elevating everybody else. That's the kind of stuff that superstars do. So if he takes that kind
And, you know, I think there's 2 guys on the third team that can make me look stupid. I'll be the first to admit that. But I'm willing to roll the dice and keep them there for now. I think LeBron James is perfectly fine and suitable on the third team. He could make me look stupid. But honestly, there's 3 names here that, and this just shows how talented the league is, because this was almost impossible to sort out. I got LeBron James, if he plays enough games, which I think he will. I think he barely snuck in last year, and I think he'll do it again. Devin Booker, Ja Morant, Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis.
See, this is why I don't like picking the all NBA teams too early, because of what you just said, and then the names you just threw out there, like Ja Morant. Like, I'm thinking if Ja Morant is healthy, that's, what is that, 26 points, 8 assists. That guy, and Memphis is going to win. To me, they're going to win at least 50 games. Like, I don't know if he's third. Morant, the best version of Morant to me is probably scarier than the best version of Halliburton.
That's fair. I put him there because I think he's going to show rust. I think he's going to start off slow. I think over the course of the full season, I think Halliburton's going to be more consistent and play at an elite level. I think Ja's going to play at an elite level towards like let's say 20 games in and back, I think he'll play at an elite level. But he did miss the last year and a half. He comes in preseason, immediately hurts his foot. I think he's just going to be rusty. And that's the only reason I have him on the third team. And honestly, when we're talking about all NBA teams, I don't think you can really afford to be rusty with how good the talent is right now in the league. Even a slow start of slow 15 first games, that's the difference between a second team and a third team to me.
No, I think that's a fair point, and I want to always remind everybody that's listening to us right now that the hardest part of making any pick, I don't care if you're picking somebody to make the finals, picking somebody to make an All NBA team, is health is unpredictable, but it's a factor every season. And I went out and projected a healthy John Morant makes Memphis one of the 5 best teams in the West. But you pointed out something that's very obvious. If he's rusty, if he should have go through a season where it's this injury and that injury, and that stunts the team, which is possible. That's the thing about this. It's so hard to predict. You can't predict health because what about Desmond Bane, who got injured last year? What about Marcus Smart there, Jack? They literally lost their 4 best players to injuries. If you want to say there was an upside to it, it was obviously they were able to draft Edey. But you can also say that the guys that played in their place, G.G. Jackson and a couple of other young players, they got a lot of playing time that they would never get. And I think now Memphis is that much deeper because of it. Remember, they're getting back Brandon Clark, who's an energy guy, a lob threat. He missed basically 2 seasons because of an injury. So, yeah, the hardest thing to do, if we just go on talent and what we think is going to happen, predictions are easy. But when you factor in health, it could go so many different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Honestly, it really, I never realized how nerve-wracking it was to make predictive lists like these two until you actually do it. Because then you have to start thinking about, okay, well, Embiid should be all NBA first team, but is Embiid going to play enough games? Okay, I think Kawhi Leonard still has the talent to be all NBA team, but is he going to play enough games? No. And then you got to think about, okay, well, John Morant's coming off injury in the preseason. Is he going to be rusty? When you start thinking about all the little factors, man, these are intensely hard.
Great. Oh, one more thing, my friend. I don't know if you saw it, but I did. I actually watched the game. Our guy, Lonzo Ball, played last night, and he looked terrific. This is the first basketball he's played in 2 years. Came in, he hit a couple of threes, got a couple of layups on backdoor cuts, but he looked tremendous. And I would say going forward, if you're a Bulls fan, you're not going to see him explode to the basket a lot over the course of this season because I think he's got to adjust and play a different way now. But what you can tell that he's been doing is he'd already improved his 3-point shot. I think it's even better. I think you're going to see Lonzo Ball shoot maybe between 39 and 42% from 3. I think the defense will be there, the playmaking will be there. I don't know what the Bulls are going to be overall because they have a very unbalanced team in terms of talent. But with Alonzo Ball, the ball moves. With a Josh Giddey, the ball moves. The only guy where the ball is going to stop at is Kobe White, and that's because Kobe White's a shooter. He's a scorer. That's what he's supposed to do. But I'm just happy as an NBA fan to see Lonzo Ball out there playing meaningful basketball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a high prediction for Lonzo Ball. And I think the second half of his career, I think he becomes a new age Sean Livingston. I think he recovers from, gruesome knee injuries that should have ended his career, gets a second chance. I think he ends up on a contender at some point, and he just becomes a staple glue guy for a contender in the future, and he retires with multiple titles. I think that
I hope you're 100% right on that because I'm with you on that because I could see him being very Sean Livingston-like and winning 2 or 3 championships on a contender and becoming a star role player. I could see that for Lonzo. And I hope it happens.
And honestly, you know what I wanted to say for last, Mo? We got the NBA next week, but can we talk about that shot and the WNBA finals in general?
Great game.
because it's just classic game after classic game, big shot after big shot. You know, Kayla McBride broke the cardinal rule. You reach, I teach. She went for the steal on Sabrina. Sabrina crossed her up. At that point, you knew she was going to get a clean look. And that's all she wrote. She walks it off, sends the links home. Overall, in terms of just, big basketball shots on, finals level stages, that's got to be up there as one of the biggest shots in finals history, regardless of gender.
All I know is once Collier hit the second free throw, I thought we're probably headed for overtime. The Liberty called timeout, and if you listen to their coach, she was saying, I want everybody moving, but they're giving the ball to Ionescu. Basically, and you could tell they went 1-4 flat. They were like, make a play, right? You make a play. And like you said, she was just as calm. She walked it up, and then she made a move. And you're right. The defender reached, she crossed her, stepped back, and literally hit the shot as time went out. Like I think there was like 1 second left on the clock, just enough time for the Lynx to try a desperation shot, and they didn't have nothing going on. But what a big shot. What a clutch shot. What a cold-blooded shot in that situation. Look, you can sometimes get lost in the shadow of a great player like Breanna Stewart. I actually think what Sabrina Ionescu has done is elevate herself within the shadow of Stewart, basically saying, like, I'm just as important as Stewie is, and I believe it.
And I got to admit, Mo, too, I loved what she did after the game. Did you hear her comments in the post-game presser?
Wait a minute, is that the line where she said, "Yeah, I made a really good second team all W"? When she said that, I fell out. I said, "Did she just go there? Did she just go there?" You know what? We don't have enough players that kind of like give you a real moment and let you know, like, because if you say, so you're disappointed in being second team all NBA or mentioned amongst other great players, she kept it 100. She was not happy being second team.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, the All-NBA first team for WNBA was Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, Breanna Stewart, Caitlin Clark, and Alyssa Thomas. Sabrina did not make it, so that's what she was referencing. She didn't make the WNBA second team, but, good for her. You could tell she took it that personal. She took it as a slight, and, a competitor of her standard, it's exactly what you should do. And she used that motivation to hit arguably the biggest shot that we've ever seen in a WNBA finals game.
It was huge. Don't forget, if anybody knows the history and the relationship of Sabrina Ionescu and the late Kobe Bryant, she is completely bought in on the Mamba mentality. If you know her, if you've listened to her in interviews, I think she takes slights and she uses any kind of thing as a perceived slight for fuel, for motivation, the same way her hero did. I love it that she was honest in a raw moment after a victory, that she was upset because she felt like she was slighted. And look, that's being a real competitor. That's being honest. I don't think she was saying that any of the other ladies taken ahead of her weren't talented or deserving. She's pointing out that she felt like she was deserving, that she should have been worthy of it. I look at the 5 women that were selected, the 5 ballers. I think that was the right 5. I love Ionescu, but who was you going to move out? Like, I'm just being real. Who would you move out? You're not moving out Caitlin Clark. She took the worst team in the WNBA, a team that started off 0-8, and flipped them around and took them to the playoffs. Anybody that's objective would look at the Liberty's roster top to bottom and look at the Fever's roster top to bottom and know the Liberty is by far a much more talented team. I love Sabrina Ionescu. I'm a huge fan of hers. She's a great player. I'm not even arguing. And by the way, I'm not saying Caitlin Clark's better than her. I think eventually she will be for sure. But I think that Ionescu is going to have the kind of career where they'll be mentioned a lot together. I don't think there's not going to be a huge separation. So this could be somewhat of a rivalry. It's only going to get bigger, Brett, once Juju hits the WNBA.
And honestly, I'm so looking forward to that. I'm so looking forward to seeing how the rest of the WNBA finals plays out. But for this week, that's all we got for you today. Next week, we are so back. I'm so excited. Are you ready for a watch along, Mo? Because that's what we're doing next week.
I am, partner. I'm ready for a watch along. Everybody that enjoys the N1 podcast, everybody that enjoys listening to all the great shows on the Wire to Wire Network, you guys tune in. We are going to have a blast doing a watch along, and I can't wait.
Our initial plan, we are going to do a watch along to Thunder Nuggets next week. And honestly, I might start it a little early. Maybe we'll catch the end of Spurs Mavericks, whichever early game is on TV. Maybe we'll get a double whammy for the sake of the first ever watch along of the 2024 season for the N1 podcast. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
I am too. Look, if you're a lover of the NBA, the way Brett I are, the way we are, the NBA for us, even during football season, and we both love football, the NBA doesn't go away. I think sports in general has become a 24/7, 365 thing. We talk about sports even when they're not going on because there's so much going on in the off season. The build up to this NBA season is so huge because of the challenges some of the older stars are facing, because of the challenges that the new guard stepping in. I'm talking about SGA. I'm talking about the defending champions, Celtics. I'm talking about a talented team like your Bucks that I think has one of the three best players in all of basketball looking to make another title run. I'm talking about what Brunson and his Knicks can do with the addition of Cat. What Anthony Edwards can do with the new addition of a Julius Randle. There's so many storylines, Brett. I just can't wait to get into them.
No, absolutely. Are you guys doing a morning show tomorrow?
No, we're in a 72-hour break.
I gotcha. Well, then, at least, you know what? Next week, also, make sure to tune into the Meaty Boys podcast. This past week, we had our first ever interview with Chase from Fountain City Pro Wrestling, who has an event tomorrow, Friday the 18th. So make sure you follow Fountain City Pro and see what they got going on over there. It's going to be a great time. We definitely appreciate you tuning in this week, and we hope you all join us next week for the watch along. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.